Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Stunned and speechless. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with Salt Strong Unchurched. This past week, I was left stunned and speechless, and some pretty deep thoughts I want to share with you today by my son, Jackson, little 7-year-old Jackson. Asked a question that kind of floored me. And let me go back to where this whole thing started from. So Jackson was born and had a pretty massive complication. He was born at full term, so he was born on the day he was supposed to be born on a planned C-section, but he had the lungs of a preemie, of like a new preemie. And so he had lungs so small, it could not support his body. And let me just kind of put you in my shoes where I was. So this is our third child. We've done this, 2 times before. Not to ever say it's easy or it's not stressful or doesn't bring anxiety. But once you've done it a few times as a husband and wife, you at least kind of know what to expect. We did not expect what happened. So I'm in there with Lauren and deliver Jackson. Everything is fine. They hand me Jackson after they, kind of towed him off and got him a little bit cleaned up. They hand me Jackson, and Lauren's still sitting there on the table because of the C-section. And so I'm right next to Lauren. I got Jackson in my hands. It's such a special moment. I'm like, want to tear up. Oh, it was awesome. Any parents who know that you've held, and this is our first son too. So it was a special moment. And then things changed pretty quickly. So, Jackson's, he's screaming, he's crying. He doesn't have like a pacifier in his mouth or anything. He's just a brand new baby, right? And all of a sudden I see the nurse. She's like, 10 feet away from me, but directly in front of me. And she's kind of watching as they're cleaning up stuff. She just keeps watching. And I saw her face. She kind of looked, and then she starts, I see this like wild look on her face. And I'm like, something ain't right. And so she has this look on her face and she runs at me. And I'm like, what's going on here? And grabs Jackson. I look down at Jackson and he does look, I don't know, not to say like pasty white, because when they're a newborn baby, they kind of look like a little alien sometimes anyways. But he didn't look right. Like he lost a lot of the color in his face, I guess is the nicest way to say it. So essentially he had just stopped breathing. Like these little lungs that he had, he couldn't breathe. So he's basically gasping for air as an infant. And she sees this. And so she grabs him as quick as possible. And they go and set him up on some oxygen. And all of a sudden our day went from being like, oh, this is awesome, how magical and special, to like, what's going on? Is our son going to make it? It was such a tough day. And as a parent, regardless if it's your first, third, or 15th, you never want, your child to be taken away from you, and you never want to hear that, oh, they're not breathing. That's just like it kills me. It kills me for the moment. It kills me for all the people who've had to go through that or have lost a child, because we got very, very close, to losing Jackson. And thankfully, he was born in the year that he was born, meaning with the technology we have, because they even said, like, had he been born 30, 40 years ago, he wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have had all the tools and the resources to keep him alive. And so he spent the next 11 days in the NICU, and talk about a brutal 11 days as a parent. So we're not allowed to touch him. He essentially lived in like a bubble. So he couldn't be around anything, couldn't get affected. He was on, essentially life support, just trying to get these lungs back, and just so constant breathing apparatus that was breathing for him, and constant care, constant water and IVs and stuff. And so he just had, it looked like some out of a movie. He was in basically a bubble, like, so no one could touch him. And even when the nurses went to do stuff, they were like going in, like, where you've got a little hole and you got gloves. So there's no human touches even hitting him, until towards the end, we were finally able to kind of hold him and touch his hands and stuff, just those little special moments. But it killed us. It was so tough as a parent, and just not knowing what's happening. And even though the NICU, entire staff there and the nurses, I mean, they're just such a godsend. And what a special just group of people there. It was at Tampa in St. Joseph's Hospital. And we're just incredibly grateful for them. But even with all of that, as nice as people can be, it's just so tough when you're told, you can't touch your son, or, he might not make it. And obviously he did get better, and he's a normal kid now, but he had all these, scars and stuff from all the big IV. And they were putting some pretty big needles into him and had to cut him up a couple of different times. So he's got quite a few little scars, and he's now to the point, he's 7. So long story short, he made it, and is doing fine, and his lungs grew to where they needed to be, where he could finally get released and be a normal kid. We still have to get him checked up quite often, but now it's, you never would know, which is awesome. But he's now to that age where he's asking about some of these scars. I know we told him about it when he was like 4 or 5, but I don't think he either got it or remembered it. So now he's to that point. He's like, well, hey, what's the scar here, like underneath my arm, like right underneath his pec, and he's got a pretty big one there, and he's got a couple more on his chest. And so we're telling him, and he's really, really curious, and he's like, well, can I see? Like, we were telling him, he's like, you were kind of in a bubble when you were born, and he's like, a bubble? He thinks that's cool, and so he's like, well, can I see? And we started pulling up pictures, and he never really seen these, or at least he never remembered them. And he was just fascinated by this. He's just like, why did I have lungs like that? And why couldn't I breathe? And like, did I almost die? Like, he's asking all these questions. And then, so I was talking with him outside, I'm talking like this went on for, I don't know, 2 days of him just asking more questions. And he really wanted us to kind of know his past, and was real curious. Like, let me see that picture again. And he was just fascinated by the whole thing. And I was telling him outside, we were grilling out for the family there, and I said, Jackson, I was like, that was the hardest I've ever prayed in my entire life. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I remember it was so vivid. I was just like, God, I was like, God, take me, let him live. And that was the only time I ever prayed that in my entire life, of just pure, unselfish love. Just like, yeah, just, I went all in on the prayer, and I was even choking up telling him the story, and looking at my son, looking him eye to eye, and just like, this is the kid I prayed over harder than anything in my entire life. And it was just constant prayer. It wasn't just like 1 or 2 a day. It was, I would sit there, and I mean, we stayed with them. We went back and showered every once in a while, but we spent the night there, and one of us at least did every single night, while we still had 2 other, kids at home. But man, I prayed so hard, and I really did. I was like, God, take my life, take my energy, take whatever. Just let the boy live. And as I'm telling Jackson all this, he wasn't getting as emotional as I would. He was just like, why is my dad sitting here choking up and crying, telling the story? And I'm finished telling him about just all this and the prayers and how much I prayed over him. And he looks me back in the eyes, and he's like, well, Dad, why don't you always pray that hard? Boom. I didn't know what to say. I was stunned. So I just get done telling him, like, and this is me, almost like my ego, like, I prayed over you better than anything else I've ever done. And he sits there almost like God was speaking to him. And he's like, well, Dad, why don't you pray like that all the time over anything that's important? And wow, that kind of sobered me up really quickly. And I didn't know what to tell him. I can't just say, oh, because you're the only thing that's important, because that, even though he's incredibly important, that was a very important moment. Wow. Right. And so it really got me thinking, why don't I pray like that all the time? why don't you? Why doesn't everyone pray like that all the time? And I've started looking back at, some emails just recently about anxiety. I put that video out on anxiety quite some time ago, and it's got hundreds of thousands of views, and I still get an email almost every day. And at the end, I say this genuinely, and I do it. I say, hey, I will pray for you, John, Jake, Krista, whatever their name is. And I do, but I'll be honest, it's a quick little prayer. It's almost like I'm doing it just to do it. Like, oh, dear Lord, please pray for Krista, heal her and give her hope, and whatever it is. And it's almost like I'm trying to wrap it up as quick as I can. Whereas with Jackson's deal, I was trying not to wrap it up. I was trying to get every opportunity possible for God to hear me praying, right? And so that it's my big challenge. You guys can do what you want with it. I hope this will also challenge you as we pray to go all in. And that doesn't mean you got to pray 4 hours like I was doing with Jackson every day on every single thing, but at least while we're doing it, even if it's for 15 seconds, to go all in, right? And I do believe God uses kids. They say kids say the darndest things, but they're just so full of truth. Because they don't do it with any other reason except to want to know the truth. And I believe God was like speaking through me, like, because I was floored. He's like, why don't you always pray? And he probably doesn't even remember it. Like, it wasn't even one of those things where he's like, man, I stumped Dad. It was just like, well, Dad didn't really know the answer to that one. It was really, really wild. It was fascinating how kids can ask deep questions like that without even knowing what they're doing. So I don't know. It really got me thinking about how I pray and why don't I go all in, and why are sometimes my prayers just like trying to almost like a checklist. Like, I just got to knock this out as fast as I can. And so that's going to be one of the big things I want to work on, is going all in on my prayers. I think it's what God wants us to do. I believe it's what we're called to do. And if we are truly praying over someone else, why wouldn't we go all in? And I'm not saying that you got to, every time someone's in hurt, you have to say, God, take my life, not theirs. That's up to you if you want to go that far, but at least do it with just full on strength and sincerity and energy and love and passion. And I'll be honest, I as I told Jackson, I have never prayed like that in my entire life. And not just the things that I said, but just that hard and that deep and with that much just passion. And so I don't know, that's going to be my challenge. And I'm not going to sit here and say my goal is to be perfect with it. I just want to get better, right? I think with anything in life, it's not perfection. I don't know if that's even possible. It's just, man, I just want to strive to get a little bit better all the time. And so just wanted to share that with you. It was a special moment with my son. It was cool to be able to tell him all that and share that really for the first time, where I think he understood what he was going through as a newborn. And I don't think he'll ever understand what we went through unless he's a parent and has to deal with the same thing. But like I said, it was a special moment, and a special moment for me, in terms of making me really think hard about why don't you pray hard every time? Why do you only do it that one time? That's really what he was asking. So guys, I love you. I will pray over you. And when I do, it will be with strength and energy and sincerity and tons of love. And if there's anything I can do or any specific prayers, if you want someone who's going to be praying hard over you, let me know. Shoot me an email, joe@saltstrong.com. I can't promise it's going to be perfect, but it will be better than what it's normally been. So joe@saltstrong.com. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you have an amazing day. Go tell your friends and family and anyone else that you care for that you love them. You never know what is next. And speaking of what's next, I do have some special guests that'll be coming up here in the next month. So stay tuned. I haven't had a guest on in a while, but I got 2 special ones coming soon. Talk to you guys on the next episode. 'Cause fishing,